It was a hell of a summer. The kind where the sun beats down on your skull like a relentless drumbeat, turning the world into a shimmering mirage of heat. I was stuck in Tehran, a city that was morphing into a concrete jungle, the old Persian charm buried beneath layers of smog and the endless hum of traffic. To escape the urban inferno, I decided to embark on a solo road trip to the desert. A stupid decision, I know, but the allure of the vast, empty expanse was too much to resist. I'd heard the tales about Howl, of course. Everyone had. But like most city slickers, I dismissed them as campfire stories, something to scare kids into behaving. It wasn't until I was deep into the desert, the car a tiny speck against the endless horizon, that the reality of the situation started to sink in. The desert was a different beast at night. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the eerie whisper of the wind. Stars exploded across the inky canvas, but instead of awe, they filled me with a growing sense of isolation. As the hours ticked by, a cold dread began to seep into my bones. Then I heard it, a howl, a guttural, inhuman sound that ripped through the night, a sound that seemed to originate from the very core of the earth. It was as if the desert itself was screaming in agony. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat against the backdrop of that terrifying sound. I grabbed my phone, the screen illuminating my face in the darkness. No signal. Of course not. Just when you need it most, technology fails you. Panic started to claw its way up my throat. I had to get out of there. I fumbled for the car keys, my hands trembling like leaves in a storm. As I scrambled into the car, the howling intensified. It was like being trapped in a nightmare, a cacophony of terror that was slowly driving me insane. I gunned the engine, tires spinning in the loose sand as I desperately tried to escape whatever was out there. But I couldn't outrun it. The howling followed me, a relentless pursuit that sent shivers down my spine. I drove for what felt like hours, the desert stretching out before me, a desolate and unforgiving expanse. The sky began to lighten, promising the dawn, but the horror of the night lingered. I pulled over to the side of the road, my body trembling uncontrollably. The first rays of sunlight painted the desert in hues of gold and pink, a stark contrast to the terror of the night. As the sun climbed higher, the howling faded, replaced by the familiar sounds of nature. But the fear remained. I decided to press on, hoping to reach a town and find a place to stay. The road was empty, save for the occasional lizard darting across the asphalt. The silence was almost deafening, a stark contrast to the cacophony of the night. I stopped at a gas station, a welcome oasis in the vast desert. The attendant, an old man with weathered skin and piercing eyes, gave me a strange look as I stumbled inside. I ignored him, focusing on getting some coffee to clear my head. As I stood at the counter, I overheard a group of locals talking. Their conversation was low, but I caught snippets of their words. Howl, the desert, lost souls. A chill ran down my spine. I knew that name. I finished my coffee and paid, my mind racing. I had to get out of there. I drove for hours, the desert stretching out before me, a seemingly endless expanse of sand and rock. The sun beat down mercilessly, turning the car into an oven. I was dehydrated, exhausted, and terrified. As the day wore on, strange things started to happen. Shadows seemed to move on their own, taking on grotesque shapes. The wind carried whispers, fragments of words that I couldn't quite make out. And then there were the sounds, faint howls, like distant echoes of the night before. I pulled over to the side of the road, my mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion. I got out of the car and walked a short distance into the desert. The ground was soft and yielding, the sand warm beneath my feet. As I stood there, staring out at the endless horizon, I felt a presence. Something was watching me. I turned slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. There was nothing there, just the vast expanse of the desert. But then I heard it again. The howl. Louder this time, closer. I spun around, searching for the source of the sound. And then I saw it. A figure, a dark silhouette against the blinding sunlight. It was tall, humanoid, but with an unnatural gait. Its eyes glowed red in the harsh light. I screamed and ran, my legs burning with exertion. I stumbled and fell, the hot sand scraping against my skin. I looked up, and there it was, the creature standing over me, its inhuman face contorted into a snarl. I closed my eyes, waiting for the end, but nothing happened. When I opened my eyes, the creature was gone. I was alone in the desert, the sun beating down on my exposed skin. I managed to make it back to the car, my body trembling uncontrollably. I drove for what felt like hours, my mind a blank void. Eventually, I reached a small town, where I collapsed at a roadside motel. I spent the next few days in a daze, haunted by the horrors I had witnessed. The locals told me stories of Howl, of people disappearing in the desert, of madness and despair. I listened, but I couldn't comprehend what I had seen. As I prepared to leave the town, I looked back at the desert. It was a place of beauty and terror, a place where the lines between reality and nightmare blurred. I knew I would never forget what I had experienced. The howl would echo in my mind forever, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurks in the heart of the unknown. As I write this, I can still hear the howl, a faint whisper on the wind. The desert calls to me, promising both salvation and destruction. I know I will return one day, drawn back to the place where madness and mystery collide.